Hello, students. I'm Sam, sir, and this part of the chapter is in continuation of the previous part. That was the part one, and I hope you've seen it. If you have not, you better see it first, and then see this one. Right? This is the second part of this chapter known as human settlements. This is from your book known as India, People and Economy. Now, here's an image of urban settlements. In the first part, we had spoken about the rural settlements. Now, as a student of geography, you should be very observant because if uh, you see a scene right like this, don't be like a tourist to see just only the blue sea and the hills and the high rise buildings, but there's something else below here. You can see from this that this is the outskirt of the city, whichever city this is, and look at the congestion there. When we are talking about congestion, we particularly mean the population density of that particular area, and all these things are important for our chapter. And you, especially when we come to urban settlements, you need to know all these terms. So, urban settlements are usually compact and large in size. Even though they are huge, they are several hundred, maybe tens or hundreds of kilometer by tens and hundreds of kilometers in size. But the settlement itself is very compact. That is, the density of houses per unit area is more. Now, again, here the people are engaged in variety of non-agricultural, economic, and administrative activities. That is, they are concerned with secondary, tertiary, quaternary economic activities, but not primary economic activities. They are not into agriculture. They are not into animal husbandry. They are not into mining. They are not into fisheries, but they are mostly into administrative activities, or they're into research and development, they're into manufacturing, such activities. So cities are functionally linked to rural areas around them because the rural areas supply food as well as raw material for their industries. The rural areas also supply man force. They supply people who are skilled to do various jobs. They supply people who are willing to do the menial jobs. And exchange of goods and services are performed directly through the series of markets, market towns, and cities. So the cities are connected directly as well as indirectly with the villages and also with each other. Cities can be connected to villages, cities can be connected to another cities. Now, here's the definition of uh, an urban settlement. This is as per the census of India. Now, this definition you should all know, understand it. It's very simple and it's very important all the same. For your exams point of view, if you're asked what is the definition of urban settlement according to the census of India, you should be able to tell these points. Now, all places which have got municipality, corporation, cantonment board, or notified town area committee. And there's an and here. They have a minimum population of 5,000 people. And out of these 5,000 people, at least 75% of the male workers are engaged in non primary pursuits or non agricultural activities. And the density of population of it is at least 400 people per square kilometer. So, if these criteria are met, then we call that as an urban settlement. Evaluation of towns in India goes like this. Even in the ancient times, in the Indus Valley civilization, we had towns like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, which were for those times very well advanced. Towns have been constantly developing since then, and although there were some uneven phases until the arrival of the Europeans in India in the 18th century, towns in India can be classified as ancient towns, medieval towns, or modern towns. Now, a number of towns in India have a historical background when we're talking about ancient towns, and their histories can go back for some 2000 years. Most of these towns developed as religious and cultural centers, and you can give examples of Varanasi, Allahabad, Patliputra, which is now called as Patna, Madurai, etc. This is the street scene from Madurai. Medieval towns developed as headquarters of principalities and kingdoms uh, during the Afghan rule or during the Mughal rule. Still, India has got some 100 such towns existing. These are four towns which came up on the ruins of ancient towns, and some important ones are Delhi, of course. We have Hyderabad, we have Jaipur, Lucknow, Agra, and Nagpur. This is a picture from Hyderabad, that is Charminar in the foreground. Modern towns they developed when the Europeans developed a number of towns in India. They started with coastal locations which developed into important trading ports, and some examples are Surat, Daman, Goa, Pondicherry. Some had French dominion, some had Portuguese dominion, some had British dominion. The British later consolidated their hold on three principal nodes and developed them in the British style. And these three principal nodes are Mumbai, in those times was known as Bombay, Chennai of today was known as Madras, and Kolkata of today was known as Calcutta. This is the scene from Calcutta. This is the Vidyasagar Setu. Now, modern times, uh, we continue with that. The British extended their domination directly or through control over princely states and established their administrative centers. They established hill towns as summer resorts because they couldn't tolerate the heat here in India, especially in Kolkata, which was their capital, except for the summer months. And they added new civil administration and military areas to them. Jamshedpur is a modern industrial town which developed in 1850. This is a scene from Jamshedpur. Now, when we look at the modern towns in the post independence period, we have some administrative headquarters, we have industrial centers, we have satellite towns which developed around cities. We have large number of medium and small towns which developed all over the country with increasing investment in rural areas. This diagram shows the satellite towns. The bigger circle in the center is Delhi, and you have Ghaziabad, Noida, Faridabad, Gurgaon, and other areas in the outskirts. And they are very well linked with communication and transportation with the uh, nodal city, that is Delhi. The now to find out the degree of urbanization or the level of urbanization, what you do is you do some mathematics. What you do is you calculate the percentage of urban population to rural to total population. You take the urban population that divided by the total population and multiply with 100. So in examination, if you're given a table and asked about the level of urbanization, what you have to do is do some calculations and see what result you get, what is the percentage you get. Now, urbanization level in India in 2011 was 31.16, which is quite low when you compare it to the other developed countries. But total urban population has increased 11 times during the 20th century. This is due to enlargement of urban centers. The urban centers became bigger and bigger, and new towns emerged, but this rate has slowed down during the last 2 decades because uh, often The towns find themselves at the saturation point. There is no more place to grow. If you consider Mumbai, for example, it's basically an island city. The only way Mumbai can grow is vertically upwards, but not laterally. Classification on town on the of towns on the basis of population size. The towns are classified into these six classes. You have population of 100,000 and more, and between 50,000 and 99,000, you have 20,000 to 49, almost 50,000. Like that, you have six classes. Now, what is a metropolitan city? Cities which are having population of between 1 million and 5 million are known as metropolitan cities, and India today are having 44 such cities. We have some mega cities. 9 mega cities are there which are having population of more than 5 million, and majority of metropolitan and mega cities are known as urban agglomerations. Now, these urban agglomerations are, towns in the adjoining urban outgrowths. They also become continuous with the cities. Two or more continuous towns with or without their outgrowths, and a city or or more of the adjoining towns together, they form a contiguous spread, and that spread is known as urban agglomeration. Now, the agglomeration can be of urban outgrowth, it can be railway colonies, it can be university campus, you can have port area, military cantonment, etc., located within the revenue limits of a village which is continuing contiguous to a town or city. So you have Ambala city and Ambala cantonment, for example. This is a diagrammatic representation of urban agglomeration. In the center, you have the core city. Then surrounding that, the light blue area is the suburban area. These are uh, area which is less crowded. It's little bit far away from the center, and the dark blue circles in the corners, they represent some other towns, and the greenish blue light colored towns. The smaller circles are the peri-urban areas. These are the areas between the suburban areas and the neighboring towns. This area need not be empty all the time, so it's inhabited, and that is known as the peri-urban area. So this all together, that is the outskirts, the peri-urban area, the suburban areas, and the core city together are known as urban agglomeration. This is the Indian scenario. We have more than 60% of urban population in India living in class 1 cities. Now, out of 468 cities, 53 cities are or urban agglomerations are metropolitan cities. We're talking about the population size, right? More than 21% of the urban population lives in these mega cities. Greater Mumbai is the largest agglomeration with some 18.4 million people. You can safely take it as close to 20 million people now. Other mega cities are Delhi, Kolkata, Chennai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad. Now, this is a new trend. Suburbanization is a new trend of people. They move away from the congested areas. The cities are usually more congested. The living conditions are not as good as the salary or the livelihood they provide. So they move out of the city area. Maybe there are new constructions, new townships coming up in the suburban areas, which are to their liking with better facilities. So they move out. So these areas are known as suburban areas. So important suburbs develop around major cities, and every day thousands of people commute from their homes to the suburbs, in the suburbs to the workplace in the city. They utilize in Mumbai. This is the photograph of Mumbai. This is their local train, and look at the crowd. They are all eager to jump in They don't climb in, they jump in, they clamber on each other. And this is the life of the urban areas. People living in suburbs, they have to travel to the cities for their work and studies. Now, functional classification of towns. Cities and towns are centers and nodes of economic activities for cities as well as rural settlements. In addition to that, cities and towns also specialize in certain functions, and they are known for some specific activities, products, or services. On the basis of specialized or major functions, towns and cities can be classified as in the following slides. There can be administrative towns or administrative cities. These are the towns which support administrative headquarters of states as well as the nation. So we have New Delhi, we have Chandigarh, we have the state capitals. There are towns which are mainly known for industries. Industries can be located in the town itself. For example, if you take Indore, it has got an industrial area. Or there may be new industrial areas in the outskirts. Again, if we take the example of Indore, you have the SEZ, the Special Economic Zone, just a few kilometers out, that is in Pithampur. Now, industries constitute prime motive force of the cities. Some more examples of such cities which are industrial towns are Mumbai, Salem, Coimbatore, Modinagar, Jamshedpur, Hooghly, Bhilai, etc. Some cities are nodes for transport activities. These are towns and cities which are important from the viewpoint of transport, and they are located in such a way that they provide access to other cities and towns. Then these cities, other cities and towns can be within the same country or they can be in some other country. Now they have important ports or they have important railway junctions. For example, Allahabad, you have Itarsi, you have port cities such as Kochi, you have Kandla, you have Visakhapatnam, etc. Now this is a photograph from Visakhapatnam. You have the city behind, you can see the buildings, and in the foreground you have the port. Commercial towns are known for commercial activities and trades. Now, some towns specialize in certain kind of trade, and they have become well known for them. For example, Surat in Gujarat is known for diamond trade. You also have Nagpur, known for orange trade. Mining towns are the towns which are located near regions which are rich in minerals, and the major mines are located nearby. And often they develop into townships which support the residence and settlement of the people who are involved in the mining activity. And of course, these settlements, they support their families. They have the infrastructure required for supporting the workers and their families. Given below are some examples. Singrauli is located in a coal mine area, and because of coal availability, you have Northern Coalfields Limited, you have their township, and because coal is available, you have thermal power plants, you have NTPC, National Thermal Power Plant, you have the state governments, the power plants also, and each of them have their own township with hospitals and schools and banks and markets. Everything is there. Now, garrison cantonment terms. First, understand what is a garrison. Garrison is a group of soldiers whose task is to guard a town. Now, these are permanent military areas. They have been like that since several decades, and they may be there for protection of important areas, or they can also be military training centers. The people themselves are transient, they come and go, they get transferred or they come on transfer, but the town itself supports approximately the same number of people. That is the burden on the land and burden on the resource of the land is almost the same. Only the people keep on moving in and out. Some examples of cantonment towns are Ambala, Jalandhar, Mahu, Babina, Udhampur, etc. This is a picture of Ambala cantonment. You have educational towns. These are towns which are important centers of education. They are the hubs of education. They have universities, medical colleges, engineering colleges, and institutes. These towns are started as centers of education and have now grown into major campus towns. We have Roorkee, you have Varanasi, Aligarh, Pilani, Allahabad. You have Kota in Rajasthan. You have Bhopal. You also have in Rajasthan. You also have Sikar, which have been they are known as educational towns. This is from Pilani. You have religious towns and cultural towns. These are towns which have religious and cultural significance. Most of them are ancient temple towns, or they are located on the banks of rivers which we consider as sacred. They find mention in the books of religious importance, or they are associated with saints. You have Ajmer, which is associated with the Sufi saint. You have Mathura, Varanasi. You have Amritsar, etc. This is Amritsar. Then you have the tourist towns. These are towns which have a natural beauty, they have a good climate, or they have other factors which attract tourists to them. Some tourist destinations in India are Nainital, Mussoorie, Shimla, Pachmadi, Jodhpur, etc. This is the scene from Shimla. The nature of town and the function of town is not static. That is, the towns do not perform the same function over several centuries. No, it's not possible. It doesn't work that way. Specialized cities to become multifunctional when they grow into metropolis. Uh, then, when that happens, the transport, the administration, the industries, the business, they also become important. And these functions get so intertwined with that the city can no longer be categorized in a particular functional class. You cannot call Vishakhapatnam only as a port town. It is a port town, but it also has got some other functions, which the people of living in Vishakhapatnam will know better. Maybe you know your town better than an outsider. That your town is known for one particular activity, but it's also known for several others. This is the end of the chapter. We covered both part 1 and part 2. That is rural settlements and urban settlements in this chapter. If you have questions, you can ask in the online meeting and give it a thumbs up. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.